Okay, everybody, welcome back in. 2021 off season. We're kind of basing this off of a video we just did for the New York Jets and their quarterback position. And this is just kind of some more thoughts based on Trevor Lawrence and the stuff surrounding the New York Jets during the end of this season. And for who knows how much longer, I guess, depending on how long Trevor Lawrence is good in this league. First of all, I want to say with Trevor Lawrence, I fully expect him to be an excellent quarterback in this league. I have seen nothing to make me doubt that. You've seen things that you'll see from any good college quarterback, maybe some inconsistencies at times, good games, and every once in a while, not a bad game, but a sloppy game mixed in. So you'll see that, but I have every reason to expect that Trevor Lawrence is going to be a good quarterback in this league, and maybe possibly even a great quarterback in this league. And so I'm not expecting anything. I expect Jacksonville to win a lot of games over the next few years. So certainly I'm not expecting anything different there. I'm not doubting anything that people hope for here with Trevor Lawrence. And, if you're a Jets fan, if you've been a fan of this organization, and especially if you've suffered with this organization for a long time, or if you're one of the younger Jets fans and you're just all in heart wise, it's got to be crushing to not get Trevor Lawrence. So I have no bad words at all for Jets fans whose hearts have been really crushed here by not getting Trevor Lawrence. I think what is disturbing for me is what I've seen from outside sources commenting on the Jets organization and more specifically commenting on their incompetence. And if you're a Jets fan, I understand why you feel that way because you were this close to getting Trevor Lawrence. But I've seen some very well-respected sites and some well-respected media outlets and rather some well-respected people personally that I respect starting to come out with some of this stuff about how the Jets were incompetent and they just can't lose enough to even get Trevor Lawrence. And one of the easiest things to do would have been to just lose and lose, and that somehow they weren't competent enough to lose that much. And that's something that really bothers me a lot because first of all, I don't know what you're really asking from the Jets organization. Certainly, Adam Gase and all of his staff and all of his assistants are not going to lose anything on purpose or even lose anything subtly or even play or even coach less hard than they already have been. If I were a head coach or a competitor in any organization anywhere and somebody came to me and asked me to try to lose on purpose or to just try to play less hard, I'd have a few choice words for them. I'd tell them where they could stick that idea. If I were a player, and I don't care if it's Marcus May or Joe Flacco or Sam Darnold or fill in the blank of the Jets players, these people have no interest in being 0-16 or 1-15. They have no interest in losing any games at all. So if I were a player and a coach came to me, which they wouldn't, or somebody in the front office came to me and tried to ask me to sit out a few extra games or play less hard or do anything less than my best, I'd have a few more choice words for them, and I tell them where they could stick it. Okay, so if you're, and I don't think people are, but if you're blaming the coaches of the Jets, or if you're blaming the players of the Jets for not losing enough so that they could get Trevor Lawrence, I just think that's pure bush league. I don't really know where that comes from. So if you're not blaming the coaches and the players because they're playing for their jobs, they are coaching for their jobs. Which, by the way, the coaches Adam Gase lost his job as a result of two bad seasons here. If you're not blaming the coaches or the players, then you must be blaming the front office or the owner, which means that you must be blaming Joe Douglas or the owner, in which case you're asking, I don't know what. I don't know if you're asking Joe Douglas to trade away more players more quickly. He already gave up Steve McClendon. He already gave away or traded, not gave away, but traded away a couple of other players, Jamal Adams, before the season started. Excuse me for a second. And then he gave away, he cut loose Le'Veon Bell, of course, midway through the season as well. So that's three players that he rather subtly let go, all for different reasons. Who knows if he was trying to make a play for that lower pick or not, that first round overall pick? I don't know. But certainly, I don't think you could ask Joe Douglas to do any more than he did to try to lose more games and be more competent somehow. So that really bothers me a lot to see that from well-respected organizations and sites and people who seem to have a lot of inside knowledge about the league. And there are no guarantees anyway. This method of losing to win is not a tried and true method in the NFL. We've seen the Browns come the closest. They purposely dismantled their entire team. But that 0-16 Browns team was a lot worse than this Jets roster. This Jets roster really should have ended up with 3 or 4 victories. Even after Jamal Adams got traded, and even after C.J. Mosley opted out, this team had every right to be winning 3 or 4 games. They never really should have been in an 0-12 position or an 0-13 kind of position. They never really should have been there in the first place. And so to ask Joe Douglas specifically, I don't know if you're asking him to sit a healthy Sam Darnold and a healthy Joe Flacco and start Morgan, the rookie, out of the state of Florida. I forget if it's Atlantic or International, and asking them to start him for the last 3 or 4 games of the season. And if you're doing that, then why shouldn't you be also criticizing the Atlanta organizations and the Detroit organizations and even the Houston organizations who don't need a quarterback, but they could bring in Lawrence and then trade him away for a huge draft haul? Why wouldn't you criticize those other organizations as well if you're going to criticize the New York Jets? Listen, nobody at the start of the season, even after Jamal Adams was traded and after C.J. Mosley was opted out, nobody expected this team to go 0-8 or 0-10. Everybody still thought, well, we've got a chance to win some games here. Probably not a playoff team anymore. We're probably going to be on the lower end of it, but we've still got a chance to win. So I really don't understand what people are asking when they're criticizing the Jets for being incompetent. And I get it. Some people are tongue-in-cheek, and some people are kind of making jokes and poking fun at an organization that has struggled for a very long time. And I'm personally not a Jets fan. I have no vested interest in this. But this is really kind of a lot of garbage here that we see from well-respected sites and places to keep talking about Jets incompetence, because I don't really know what you're expecting them to do. And again, I mentioned there are no guarantees. The last time we had a quarterback prospect this ballyhooed and this celebrated coming into the league, which we've had some good ones, and most years we do, but the last time we had somebody this good, it was Andrew Luck. And we all know what happened with Andrew Luck. Of course, he had the freak, horrible injury that ended his career. But even when he was healthy, I think it was for 6 seasons, they topped out at about 10 or 11 wins. They never could get over the hump. They made one AFC championship game. He was in the Pro Bowl for 4 seasons. He never did make an All-Pro. Who knows if he would have been. He was starting his seasons in which he wasn't on his rookie contract anymore. He was on his big money contract, would have made it more difficult for the Colts organization to win. Not that they couldn't have, but it would have made it more difficult. And so there are no guarantees. Even Andrew Luck, who was the last guy that we had who was this respected and this celebrated coming out of college to this level and to this degree, even he brought with him no guarantees, and neither will Trevor Lawrence. And like I said, I fully expect Trevor Lawrence to win, and I expect Jacksonville to win. And if you're a Jets fan, I have no problem with you criticizing anybody in the Jets organization because you're a fan and your heart is all in this and your emotions are sky high, as mine would be if I were a Jets fan. But for people outside the organization who somehow want to attach this as an analytical expertise, it's just pure hogwash. You would never ask anybody to compete less than their best. And, even myself, when I'm competing at any level, anywhere, I may not think that I can win. I may know for sure that I can't win, but I'm going to work my fullest for every second of every play, of every game, and I'm going to make darn sure that whoever I'm playing against has to work just as hard as I'm working, even if I know I have no chance of winning. So to talk about Jets front office or coaches or players somehow being incompetent and not able to lose enough, people can always come back and use that against you. If Joe Douglas, for instance, had tried harder to be more competent, to lose more, and he goes 0-16, then they could turn around and use that against him 2 years down the road. If Trevor Lawrence is playing well, but the team's going 7-9 or 8-8, they could always point back to Joe Douglas's 0-16 record as a general manager and use that against him. So I'm completely diametrically opposed to people criticizing the Jets organization for some level of incompetence here. Although we all understand what's at stake, and we all understand how good Trevor Lawrence can be, and we all understand how disappointed Jets fans should be, and we all understand how excited Jacksonville is going to be now. I get all of that, but I just don't understand why some of these so-called experts around the league and around media sources are criticizing the Jets organization. Because if you're going to do that, then you should criticize Atlanta for not heading into the season with some kind of a plan to lose. You should criticize Detroit for not heading into the season with some kind of a plan to lose. You should criticize Jacksonville for winning their one game You should criticize anybody who had any kind of chance at all at Trevor Lawrence. It's all in the same boat. And I want to end with this. This is an idea I've been stewing over for a couple of years because really, I don't like the idea of incentivizing losing anyway. The idea, and I liked the idea decades ago because you had teams, and because the rules were so different. You had teams like the Cleveland Browns in the 1950s, and you had teams in other sports who were winning so much that the leagues needed a way to help those bottom teams actually compete with the top teams. The leagues have changed all now. It's much more streamlined, and it's a lot easier really to compete. And so a lot of times when you have teams finishing near or at the bottom, especially organizations do it year after year after year, it's nothing but incompetence as far as continuing to finish at the bottom year after year after year. And so to incentivize losing is something that I really don't like. Now, I also don't like incentivizing winning in that I would never want to see the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl and then get the first overall pick and get Trevor Lawrence. I'm totally against that. I would never, when the Patriots were winning for 15 or 20 years or however, what a lifetime it seemed, I would never have wanted the Patriots to have won the Super Bowl and then get the first overall pick and just keep adding to what they're already doing and become even more unstoppable than they already were. So I don't like either end of that. And while the idea I have isn't perfect, it makes me feel a lot better. I would much rather see the top four teams who don't make the playoffs. And that would be, usually the 7 and 9 teams, the teams that are trying to win and just can't seem to get there. I would much rather see those four teams every year get a shot at that first overall draft pick and basically get a shot at that first pick in every single round. So, for instance, whoever was the first team out of the playoffs this year, and I'd rather see it be a 4-team playoff. And I know you would have to run something like that by the Players Union, and the Players Union is going to ask a lot for that, even though it's just 3 extra games, because you would have 4 teams, the 4 teams who missed the playoffs, you would have those 4 teams playing each other, kind of like a miniature playoff, for the right to get that first round pick. So my thought is throw in a few extra $1 million for the players of the winning team to play for. They split that up percentage-wise based on the contracts they already have, so that each player has something to play for in that 4-team playoff, and then the organization has a reason to try. And I think you would see a lot more teams really try to get away from this idea, especially in a year like this year where Trevor Lawrence is available, of just trying to lose, and of an atmosphere being created where fans are screaming and media is screaming for a team to lose on purpose or to somehow play less hard or try less hard or do anything less hard than compete. I think it would avoid a lot of that. And I know that the argument against that is, even if you get the Players Union to sign off on that, to that little 4-game playoff for the first overall pick in each round, you're incentivizing mediocrity at that point, right? Because wouldn't a team rather finish 7 and 9 and get a chance at a first round pick, especially if it was Trevor Lawrence, versus say a team finishing 10 and 6 and having really no chance to win in the playoffs? Yeah, that might be the case, but that would be a lot more difficult to pull off. To be bad enough to finish 7 and 9 and yet good enough to win a 4-team playoff, that would be a lot more difficult than to pull off just flat out being terrible. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, what's wrong with being bad to be good? Because we've seen it in other sports. And again, it's not something we've seen in the NFL very much of. The 49ers were a team that were really good, went really bad all of a sudden for things that really were beyond their control, and in a lot of cases, and then they got good again, went back to the Super Bowl again. We really haven't seen that work much in the NFL. We have seen it in baseball. We've seen the Houston Astros and the Atlanta Braves, but that's much more of a systemic, long-range plan when they do it in the major leagues. And again, there's no guarantees there because you still have to hit on so many draft picks in Major League Baseball, and you have to wait so long in order to see a plan like that come to fruition. So we've seen the Astros and the Braves do it in baseball. We've seen a couple of basketball teams do it when a certain draft pick comes through, but that's usually a once-in-a-generation kind of a pick. What we've seen more often happen in the NBA is teams just clear tons and tons of cap space and then bring in 2 or 3 free agents who are top guys, and all of a sudden you have a super team. I'm not a huge fan of that either, but at least that's something that is a long-range plan. They made the point to clear out that cap space, and then they were able to get those free agents together. Here in the NFL, and quite honestly, in the NBA too, I would love to see something more like this, some kind of a playoff for teams who are trying to win and they just can't quite get over that hump and they barely miss the playoffs. They would be the teams who would have a chance at the first overall pick, not just of the whole draft, but in each round. And especially in the NFL, I would like to see something like that. Some people say that's gimmicky. Some people say the players' union would never pass that. It's kind of sticky. I understand all of that, but that's something I would much rather see. So anyway, that's my opinionated rant for the day. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great one. Bye.